A lot of times in the spring, and this is kind of spring weather for us, I work on my vehicles a little bit, and that's what I've been doing. So today I'm going to be doing a turbo swap on this engine, and I thought I'd fire up the camera. I haven't been firing up the camera, and take you along if you want to hear the commentary and see what I'm doing. I'm going to show you what I've done before this, and then I'll take you into swapping the turbo out. I started out replacing the hubs. I had one that was kind of getting loose, and I just decided to tear it down and do both. This is a 3/4 ton 4x4 6.5 liter diesel, so the hubs are the biggest ones you can get, 8,600 pound rated. I got a couple quotes just to see what they would charge me locally, and they wanted $500 to $600 for each hub to do the job. And it wasn't an easy job, but it wasn't too bad, and I was able to do both for about $400. While I was in there, I just decided to do the brakes too. I put new rotors on, calipers, pads, and redid the ABS sensors as well. The quotes that I got for each wheel were around $200 to $300 a piece, and I was able to do both sides for less than a couple $100. So I saved quite a bit of money doing that, and I'm always happy with that. I can't stress that enough when I'm putting up these vids, that how much this really saves you in the long run. But whenever I do something like this, I usually end up making an upgrade too. You kind of get into working on it, and I decided I was going to swap out turbos. So let me show you that. This is the old GM turbo, a GM4 that I took off the truck. And I've already rebuilt this once since I've owned the vehicle. And it was still making enough pressure, but it was starting to leak some oil. I could see a little blow-by in there. I don't know if you can see that. The seal was starting to leak. So I just decided I was going to do an upgrade. After a little research, I decided to buy an HX35. This is actually a HOLSET clone. They've been making these turbos for a long time, and they work great on the 6.5 liter as well. Not only will this lower my exhaust temperatures, which are really important for diesels, but I'll probably gain some miles per gallon, some better efficiency out of this. This turbo was not designed to bolt onto my engine. As you can see in the old GM, they've got a different downpipe here. This one's got a clamp, and this will not transfer over. So I needed to figure out a way to make a downpipe. Luckily, there's a kit out there through PT Wiring Solutions. He works a lot with 6.5 liter turbo diesel engines, and he made a kit. I think it was well worth the money. He put a downpipe on there that will match up to this one, so I can just directly bolt it on to my engine. With the kit, I was able to replace the turbo oil feed line, the return oil feed line, which was really a bad setup by GM in the first place. It's kind of cobbled together. Let me show you the one I got on the truck now. So with the turbo kit from PT Wiring Solutions, I was able to get a new plate and a nice stainless steel oil feed line, and it just eliminates all that cobbled together business that GM put out. That thing was engineered to leak. You're always leaking some oil out of there. This one is going to be a lot tighter, and it just cleans up the space. So that comes with the kit as well. I still have to modify some minor things. Number one, the outlet on this HX35 has to be cut off. I'm going to use a silicone connector, and I just don't need that on there. So let's do that first. I'm going to have to cut that flange off. I don't want to get any metal shavings in there. So let's take the front end outlet off the turbo. That way we can clean it up separately once we've cut it off. And we don't stand any chance of damaging those blades, even though it'll be aluminum shavings. I just don't want to get anything in there. Now you can just use a hacksaw to cut into this. It's just aluminum. If you have a bandsaw, which I do, that would work too, but I just don't want to mess with that right now. So in less than 5 minutes with the hacksaw, I was able to take that flange off, and then using my angle grinder with a sanding pad, I was able to grind it down nice and smooth, and finished it off with the steel wool just to make it look factory. That way I can use this silicone connector to then connect the turbo to my intake on my vehicle. I'm going to do one more modification while I got this outlet off, and that is to remove what's called the silencer ring. It sits right inside the outlet of the turbo. When Holset first designed these turbos, they didn't make them with a silencer ring because any normal guy, any normal red-blooded guy wants to hear the turbo. They like that whistle sound. But Mopar had to request that a silencer ring go in there because hippies were complaining. Now, I don't really like hippies, so I'm going to remove the turbo ring to make them mad. And what's nice about this is that with the height of my truck, the turbo sits at about head level when hippies are driving their Hondas and Priuses and Subaru Foresters. So this will really be nice for them when they're driving next to me. And the easiest way to remove the silencer ring is just to get a screwdriver in to this circle clamp, and then it'll come right out of there, hopefully. And see, that provides a little bit of airflow than to have this muffler ring in there. It's probably not anything that you can perceive behind the pedal, maybe on a dyno, but it's better to have this thing out. If not, just to piss off the hippies. Once that's done, I can clean this off. Just make sure it's as clean as possible. I just blow it out, and then you can install your lock ring once more. It doesn't snap out and kill you. We're not really going to worry about exactly where it's pointing as long as it's kind of pointing in the right direction, so to speak. Once we get it, the turbo on the truck, then we'll line it up to my intake. We're going to take off this back plate and put on the new downpipe. Once I get the downpipe on, I'll install the oil feed line connector again through the kit to help me match it up to my truck. Alright, my first complaint about the kit, although it's a small one, when I was putting the bolts in to the oil drain, the lock washers just broke apart like plastic. I mean, total junk. So I'm just going to use the old bolts, which I'm a little happier with anyway. I was noticing that the old bolts are longer, so they got a better bite. I'm just going to put a little Loctite on them. Now, the least fun I've had in this whole project was actually taking the old turbo off. It's a very hot part of the engine, and over time the bolts and nuts just kind of weld themselves together. I was lucky enough to get 3 off, which I thought was pretty good, but I eventually had to cut the 4th one off, and had it been any other bolt, I would have had to have torched them off. Everything else has been pretty easy. I'm going to do a dry run with this just to see how the turbo sits on the old mount right now. But I think I'm going to have to cut into my intake, which I was warned about with the kit. It depends on the turbo you get, but now the kit instructions tell you to take the whole air plenum off in order to make the cut to adjust the distance between the intake and the new turbo. I'm not going to do that. I don't really listen to instructions anyway because I'm a guy. And I really don't want to take all this stuff off up here and go through all that. So what I've done is I've got my wife's favorite towel underneath the air plenum so I can catch any of the sawed aluminum, and I'm going to try to hack through the air plenum while it's still on. And I've also stuck a big towel inside so nothing can get in there, and when I pull it out, of course, it'll wipe everything clean, and then I'll blow everything off and clean it up, and hopefully that works. Alright, that worked out pretty slick. I got enough shaved off that I can get a nice bite when I go to put that silicone connector on there. That looks pretty good, and I've got some stuff I want to vacuum out here and clean everything off best I can, but I don't think anything will get in there, and if any dust does, that's not going to matter, but no shavings are going to get into the intake. Nice. It's looking pretty good. Just kind of dry mounted it up to make sure it hooks up. I didn't even have to take that much off. I could have probably done 3/4 of an inch instead of an inch. All you really need is a 1/4 inch between it. But still, it will work for my coupler. And the new air filter silicone outlet looks good. I think we're ready to make this reel. Before I do bolt this down though, I'm going to do one more thing. As long as I've got the turbo off, it won't take me that much longer to install a pyrometer. So I'm going to need to make a hole in the exhaust manifold. That's the best place to tap in, and then thread it so the sensor can go in there. Now, like before, I'll stuff a towel down in there, except that I'll also put one of those super magnets down in there to try to catch any of the shavings, because I'm not dealing with aluminum, soft aluminum this time. I'm dealing with stuff that's could be real nasty if it got in the wrong places. So I'll just do this as a little extra insurance to catch anything I can. There's kind of a natural flat spot on the exhaust manifold, the turbo side right there. I think that's what it's actually meant for, so that's where I'm going to put it. So after I tap that hole, I'll put some threads in it. The oil not only makes it easier to thread that hole, but it catches a lot of the shavings too. I'll use a small magnet even on the outside before I do anything else. See if I catch anything. Look at that. Even before I remove the towel, I'll use my small magnet, kind of probe around in there. Even caught a few leftovers with that. I feel pretty secure there are no shavings at all left over in there. Now we can put the sensor mount in. Hopefully, right? There we go. Easy peasy. And of course the probe itself. And then I'll run this cable back to my dash. There you go, kids. Easy as Sesame Street. Nothing to do now but hook it up. I don't want to start this turbo dry, so I'm going to take a little penetrating oil, not much, and put it into the turbo itself. And then I'm going to get some regular motor oil and pour it in there as well. Alright, that's it. I'm pretty sure I tightened everything down, and I'm ready to start it up. I'll see if I've done anything right. I'll let you guys have a front row seat. I'm going to fire this up. I'm going to let this run for a good 15 minutes just to bring it up to temp and let that oil get circulated. Turbone. Turbone. I don't know about you, but this is the kind of stuff that gives me a turbone. Okay. I got it up to temp. I'm going to rev it up a little bit.
Man, that whistle's nice.
Put all the plumbing in using a step drill, and then I use just a weak flame from a lighter to kind of cauterize it all and seal it up. If I don't mind saying so myself, that really turned out to be a very clean installation. It looks factory. That's always what I'm shooting for. There's the pyro sensor that I tapped into the manifold. And I ran that up alongside the firewall. And then right next to my vacuum gauge tubing is the pyro sensor that I put in through the firewall. And I finished that off cleanly up from the dash and put it alongside my turbo boost gauge. So I got my Pyrometer, pyro gauge, and my boost gauge alongside of each other. A lot of people mount these here, but I found that I don't like that. It just bugs me enough. I think it's really nice and clean to mount them here, and it looks cool, but I like them on the dash. I watch my boost gauge more than any other gauge. I think it's kind of a diesel thing. But anyway, there's not much to do. Give this thing a test drive now. Alright, from a standstill, we're going to take off here. I've got the turbo turned down quite a bit. It won't break 15 on the boost because I'm going more for economy. I got plenty of power in the engine for my needs anyway. I don't know if the camera's going to pick up the turbo, but I love the sound. And even at 70 miles an hour, it's not like annoyingly droning away, but it's kind of like a jet engine in the background. So at 70 miles an hour, relatively flat road, it's approximately 55 degrees out. I've got 5 on the boost and a little over probably 550 on the exhaust temps, which is really good. I've got the camera back where my head is, and I don't know if you can see what I mean, but I can watch where I'm driving and yet just move my eyes down to where the gauges are, and that's what I like about mounting the gauges there, better than mounting them up here. I've done other like test rides, and I used to do videos where I'd be driving around, but it always creeps me out on YouTube because there's always those weirdos. They're like, I know where that is. I don't live too far away from there. Do you want to meet me at a gay bookstore? We can talk about end of the world. There's just people that are like that, you know, where they're watching your vids and they're trying to figure out, you know, like where you are, where you're driving right now. So, you know, then we can meet up. Like this is Tinder, you know. It's creepy. It's creepy, people. Creepy people are on YouTube. So now I just go out to the country, drive around. I don't know if there are any gay bookstores that you guys could meet at, but I'm not interested either way. You know, when I'm driving around, I would bet 98% of the people driving are watching their cell phones, and probably the other 1% are trying to get their GPSs to tell them what to do or where to drive. And I don't know. I just like to watch gauges. I don't really want to watch my cell phone. I really don't care. I don't want to play on my iPad. I don't want to watch TV. I don't want to watch my GPS. I just want to watch my gauges. I like to see what my vehicle's doing. You know, just just kind of drive around, listen to the music. I know, it's old school, but watching gauges, it's nice. Nice. Real nice. Well, that finishes it. Looks like it was a good, solid install. I don't see any leaks. I like the upgrade. I can tell I got a little more power, and I don't have as much heat related with this particular turbo, which really is why I made this upgrade. I wanted to bring down the temps. And a lot of you may be saying, you know, what's the big deal? Is a turbo worth it? Some of you may not even know how a turbo works. I'll try to put that in a nutshell for you right now. The turbo works off energy that your engine is already creating. Basically taking your exhaust from your engine and rerouting it through a turbine right here. And that turbine runs another turbine, which is right here. And that goes into your intake. So you're using exhaust gases to drive a turbine that runs another turbine that compresses the air going into your engine. So you're basically changing the atmospheric pressure. See, right now the air has this much space in between the molecules around it. And what the turbo does is it compresses it. It puts more air in the same space. And of course, that helps your engine run better. It helps it run more economically, and it also gives it more power. So you're saving gas, or fuel, I should say, but getting more power out of it. That's what a turbo does. And a supercharger does the same thing. Turbos and superchargers do the same thing. They compress the air going into the engine, but they work two different ways. Again, this works on exhaust, and a supercharger is actually run off a belt in your engine. You've probably seen superchargers if you ever watched the show Mad Max. That's what he runs on his police interceptor. And both have their pros and cons. The con to a turbo is that it can build up heat. Just the whole design of it is going to build up more heat, so you got to watch that. And supercharger, you're losing some of the energy and some of the economy because you've got to run the supercharger off a belt, which is a drain on your engine. You know, I've had this vehicle for over 17 years, and I've done most of the work myself and maintained it the whole time. I've taken it on thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of miles of road trips with it. I've taken it over the Rockies in the west and over the Appalachians in the east, and I've been down to the southernmost point with it. I've taken it on many road trips with my family. We've got a lot of memories associated with it. Most people have bought at least 2 cars in a 17-year period. A lot of people have bought 3, 4 cars during that time. I've never made a payment on this. It's definitely saved me a ton of money, and I've turned every bolt on it. I know when it's running right, and I know when it's not running right. I have to say it was an accidental choice, because I do like what this vehicle does, you know, the gas mileage I get with it and what it can pull. But it really kind of got me away from the ego trip that the vehicle is in the American culture, and I was able to check out of that. It was an accidental choice at first, but now I understand what that did for me. And doing upgrades like this over the years, it's just part of the fun for me. It doesn't take me long to do this. And doing the regular maintenance, of course, saves me a ton of money. And I don't mind throwing a little extra few bucks in here and there for some upgrades like this. Anyway, guys, I'll talk to you later. Hey, look, look, look! There's a Honda with an Obama bumper sticker on it. It's a hippie! Hey, hippie! Can you hear my turbone? I love it!